Welcome everyone to my latest video focused on the new collab with Final Fantasy XIV and Fall Guys. To get started, go to the gold saucer and pick up the quest called Just Crowning Round. Requires level 15, you just have to talk to a couple NPCs, and before you know it, you'll be in the hub. This guide is going to be centered around the achievement associated with a new title in the game that is pretty daunting. The achievement is called It's a Blunderful Life, and it requires you to place first 100 times, which is a lot. After running it several times myself, I've come to realize that it's not quite as RNG as Fall Guys, and this is actually more of a mechanical skill check. Luckily, it's very repetitive, but if you're not doing the mechanics, you're not really going to happen upon a win randomly. You're going to have to learn most of them in order to beat other players. Unless you get lucky and have a lobby where it's just you and a couple other people. So, it's good news in a sense that you can practice and get very good at clearing, but it's bad news if you were hoping this would be pretty casual and you just make your way to 100 wins just by playing. It's going to take a bit of work. But that's what this video is all about, and we are going to try and do our best to help you guys get your 100 clears and get you that sweet, sweet new title called King Bean or Queen Bean, depending on if your character is male or female. So let's get into it. First map that we're going to talk about is called GentleBean's Fever. You'll know you're on the map if you see a bunch of axes swinging in front of you at the start. After that, there will be moving cones with point-blank AoEs, followed by the same moving cones with point-blank AoEs, except this time sliding on ice. We will have a stillness mechanic, a misdirecting finger pointer mechanic that obstructs our movement, and finally some platform jumps. To begin, go either left or right. Don't be shy to actually wait in front of each axe if you want to, as some people will just run straight through, and it's kind of a 50-50 if he'll make it or not. I usually just wait in front of them for each snapshot. After that, there will be cones swerving from the left and the right in front of you. They will always be out of sync, with one going to the left while one is on the right. Once they arrive at their destination, they will do a circular AoE. What I like to do is walk into the one that just exploded, and then run past it. After that, we have the exact same mechanic, except this time we're sliding on ice. Apply the same principle here, but if you do get hit, just keep trying to slide forward, as trying to do fancy movements for recovery, more often than not, just wastes time. It's not a big deal if you get hit by this. Next, we'll move over the line and get an acceleration bomb, while dodging some axes once more. Acceleration bomb just means that you need to stop moving when the timer gets to 1. You'll see the debuff go away, and that's your cue to keep moving. Once the acceleration bomb is done, the trickiest section is in front of you, where a little spinner will now appear above your head. Take your time and make sure that you're moving in the correct direction to dodge the log, and beware that you can fall into the hole. One thing to take note of is you can hide in front of the hole and be safe from the log if you need a moment to reorient yourself. Like all of the other floors other than the last one, take your time when doing these, as it's more impactful to fall off and wipe rather than taking a few seconds to reorient yourself. Once you're past the logs, the final feat is one of the easier ones. You'll see 2 beams appearing and disappearing in front of you. When you see a fresh beam appear, jump on top of it, as the next one will disappear shortly after you've jumped off it. Repeat this process once or twice, and you should be good to go. For the next map, this is the other option for the first round. We'll start with a forced march. After that, there will be a spinner mechanic with knockbacks. There will be some darting little pylons that we'll have to dodge, as well as a spinny mechanic that will disorient our character, finally topped off by a rock climbing mechanic where you have to dodge boulders as well as more of those pylons. You'll see 8 cylinders in front of you, and 4 yellow cylinders in front of those. You'll run along the blue cylinders, hop on the yellow cylinders, and finally walk along the beam that gives you an arrow debuff. You're going to get either a right face, down face, or left face. Just make sure you turn your character so that way the right face, down face, or left face doesn't run you off the edge. Make your way forward to the spinners. The ones that are currently spinning will soon pause, and the ones that were paused will start spinning. Take your time here, don't rush, and try not to get stunned. Even if you do get stunned once or twice, it's not that big of a deal, as most people fail this run near the end. There'll be a couple of sliding goalposts, not a big deal if you get hit by those. The hardest part is the spinning. If you look at the marbles as they're rotating, you'll see that there are markers on the floor of where they'll stop, and they never go past that point. You can use that to your advantage and have the same pattern pretty much every time you do this one. And so, you'll just want to keep zigzagging between them before finally getting to the final climb. There'll be 2 snowballs at the top that will be descending down, as well as more of those goalposts sliding from side to side. I recommend sliding upward, but also making sure that you're keeping an eye on those goalposts and trying to get behind them whenever possible, as it gives you the most time to react. If they're catching up to you and gaining on your space, you're going to have a much harder time. You can swish side to side or also go back very briefly if you need to pause, if you're worried about getting hit by a goalpost. And I do this pretty much every run. And after that, you're ready to go to the next round. Next up for the second round maps is the Hold Swiveller. Other than Typhon's continuous wind attack, we'll have hammers to deal with, we'll have rectangular pylons this time, shooting out rectangular AoEs to dodge, and finally we'll have semicircle spinners that will rotate counterclockwise, trying to hit you. This time, there will be a creature in the middle that will be shooting wind across the map. It'll be in a line AoE that will slowly rotate, forcing you to keep running forward and encounter new obstacles. Typhon will be rotating pretty slowly, so don't be in a rush when doing this. There will be rotating half-circle AoEs. There will also be hammers on the side of the arena that you'll have to avoid. And finally, there will be small little pylons that will be jumping around and shooting small rectangle AoEs, and these are likely the hardest part, and you'll want to keep an eye on those. To start, we avoid a few hammers, we traverse the little balance beams over there that you'll have to watch your footing on, kind of like the Ilmeg dungeon, but for the most part, this doesn't really get too heated until the little rectangles and pylons start to appear. Take your time with these dodges, there is no rush. Even though Typhon is blowing wind behind us, he's very slow, and more often than not, people get eliminated, not by Typhon, but just by failing the mechanics. So if you're last in line, it doesn't matter. There's a high chance you're still gonna get qualified, even if you're very far behind. People just get knocked off, because the further you run forward, the more traps that get sprung. The arrows will indicate which side of the semicircle is going to get cleaved, and the hammers will give very clear indicators on where they're going to slam. After the indicator goes away, it is safe to run into it. As for the rectangles, they can shoot at a whole wide swath of angles, and you have to keep your eyes on them. They're the hardest part. I cannot stress enough that you are not in a rush. More often than not, you can just take it at your own pace and make sure that you're dodging everything, and people falling off will do the work for you. Next up is the Carrying the Crystal map. On the Crystal map, we'll have a knockback mechanic to deal with. We'll have more of those darting pylons and paying very close attention to them. And finally, we'll have these blocks that rise and fall that try to crush you that we'll have to avoid. Most people struggle this one when it comes to the red lane and the blue lane. Run to mid, and we're going to talk about the blue lane first. There's going to be 2 pylons dashing towards the start. whichever one arrived first is the one you're going to follow out. Once you follow it out, you'll want to quickly move to the right or left, depending on which one moved. After that, you'll dash forward, and then quickly step left or right again once it dashes back towards the start. At this point, you have a clear shot to cross the X. For the red lane, you'll want to go to the start and let the horizontal pylon dash. Run into its line of fire, and then quickly dart over whichever one is down at the moment. This process will then repeat, except this time there's 2 red pylons. Let the first pylon go, walk forward, let the second pylon go, then walk forward. Rushing this mechanic is the reason why most people fail it, so take your time and watch the pylons and step forward after they've gone off. It will make things a lot easier. Even if you're standing around letting mechanics resolve, you'll still qualify 99% of the time, as most of the people who fail are just bashing their head against the wall. As for the yellow lane, the little arrow markers on the floor are the snapshot for the knockback. Make your way forward, making sure to put your back to the grates, a total of 2 or 3 times depending on how much you're rushing. On the final movement, wait for the little block to lower, and then run forward and qualify. Alright, it's time to discuss the Manderville Mountain. On the final map, we will have some very annoying yellow circle AoEs that are kind of like exaflares. We will have hammers that hit front and back, a swiveling door gate at the start, as well as some red square AoEs that dart down paths and transition left to right. This is easily the most difficult part of this entire event, and you will be competing against 7 other people for the win. There is no qualifying anymore, only one person wins. So, first and foremost, we have to talk about the threats. There is going to be yellow circle AoEs that originate on the left side of the path. They'll start on the left and work their way to the right, and then adjust either up vertically or down vertically, and do another round from left to right, and then repeat. The yellow circles will be pretty much across the entire course, so you'll get plenty of practice. I recommend, if you get eliminated, or if you know you're too far behind to win, to study their movements and keep an eye on them, or just watch my POV here and try to get an idea of how they move. Understanding those yellows is absolutely imperative if you want to start getting wins, as most people just blindly run forward and don't see them coming, and do little like side steps and whatnot, or pausing to avoid getting hit by them. Next, there's going to be cascading pink little square AoEs that are going to dart down the path around the halfway point. An important thing to note is that once they go down a path, you can immediately run behind them and you won't be hit by it again for a while. You want to continuously dart behind each set of squares that's darting down, but if you stay in the same lane for too long, they'll eventually hit you again, so you need to keep darting side to side. But at the same time, those same yellow circles will be landing all around you, and it'll take a bit of practice getting used to dodging the yellow circles in conjunction with those little red squares. At the very end, it does slow down a bit, and there'll be hammers hitting behind themselves and in front of themselves. Keep track of the order that they're hitting, and immediately run on the side that they just hit, because they're going to immediately hit behind themselves on the next go-around. So, when tackling the Manderville Mountain, I've recently been testing a theory to make it a little bit easier. And what I do is, no matter if I spawn on the left or right side at the beginning, I always go to the right side. The reason why is those yellow circles always spawn on the left side originally, which means if you're on the right, you have more time to quickly react and adjust your pathing. Whereas on the left side, you get put into situations more often than not that feels like you're getting screwed over by luck. You can still win on the left. I've done it before. I'm just finding a ton of consistency on the right side, and I recommend you give it a try and see what you think. One thing I recommend is if you're having trouble with the yellow AoEs and those little red squares darting down is that you get to the mountain path again, except go into it knowing that you're going to lose that round. Go slow and really study the AoE patterns and get used to quickly darting out of the way if you see them coming. That just about does it, guys. I appreciate y'all for watching. I hope this was useful. If anyone has questions about any of the puzzle rooms, do feel free to drop a comment, or you can come ask me live at twitch.tv/AhriEffect, where we'll be doing quite a bit of Fall Guys stuff on stream. And we'll probably do some community runs as well, and if people are having a particularly hard time getting that one clear, you know, maybe we might be able to get people a clear if they really need it. But that's all from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you around for the next video, or maybe over at Twitch. Have a good day, and I will catch you on the next one.